and welcome to this video on my top 10 favourite anime series. I mentioned last week in my manga top 15 that I'll be doing this next, and this one was a lot harder to make than the manga list. The manga list I knew exactly what I wanted to put, whereas the anime list I have a top 5 which I like above or else. But as for the bottom 5, there's a lot of anime that I've rated 8 out of 10, which I all really like the same amount. And I kind of had a bit of trouble picking one over the other, so I just had to try my best for the second half of this list. But my top 5 are all 9, 10 out of 10s. And I knew I wanted them on the list, but the bottom 5 was a bit more difficult, and I did eventually come to a conclusion of what I wanted to put on the list, but it was close between a few different series for some of the spots, because they're kind of hard to compare to each other because they're completely different. Anyway, before we get on with the list, I just need to mention that this is my top 10 favourite anime, so it's my opinion, and if your favourites aren't on this list, it's probably because I've never seen them, or I just didn't like them, or just didn't like them enough to be on the list. Anyway, let's get on with the video, and for my number 10 favourite, I have Seraph at the End, Vampire Reign. And Seraph at the End, I love the manga for this one, I love the anime as well, but this anime isn't complete. All but 2 of the anime listed on this list are incomplete, the rest of them are. So yeah, Seraph at the End, it would probably be higher if it had more seasons, but it's only got 2 seasons and it doesn't complete the story, but I love Seraph at the End. And it's about vampires, and Yurichiro and Mika are 2 friends who are orphans after the world gets destroyed and everyone over the age of 13 dies, and you and Mika are orphans. They're from an orphanage, and the vampires took the kids from this orphanage to become like blood cattle in the underground city of Sanguinum, and Mika and you at 12 years old decide they want to escape, and so they hatch this plan, but the plan goes wrong. Mika and all of Yu's friends die, and Yu's the only one to escape, where he meets Goran, who invites him to join the Imperial Demon Army, which is an army dedicated to fighting the vampires and taking back the world from them. Yeah, it's very good. I'd highly recommend it. Although I do think the manga is the way to go, because as I said, the anime's unfinished. The manga's still ongoing too, but I really want a 3rd season for this one. I would love for this one to get more seasons. That would be great. Anyway, here's a few pictures of Seraph at the End. Yeah, it's a very good show, Seraph. It's an action shonen vampire, supernatural series. Starring, these are the main characters. We have Yuichiro, Shinra, Mitsuba, Shiho, Kimizuki, and Yoichi. And yeah, that's Seraph at the End, which is my number 10 favourite. Now we're going to move on to number 9, which is Wolf's Rain. Wolf's Rain is one of the first anime series I ever watched, knowing that it was an anime series. Because obviously, as a child, I watched Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon when I was slightly older as well, but I didn't know that they were anime, I just thought they were cartoons. The first anime I watched ever knowing it was an anime was Sands of Destruction, but that sucked. The second one was Wolf's Rain, and I really loved Wolf's Rain. Obviously, it's got wolves in it. I love wolves. Wolf's Rain follows 4 wolves on their journey to find paradise. So we have Kiba, we have Hige, we have Sume, and we have Toboe, and they find Cheza here, who is a flower maiden, and she's supposed to be the key to unlocking paradise. But wolves are almost extinct in this world, so they disguise themselves as people, so they can go undetected in this world as they search for paradise, using Cheza, who is the flower maiden. But there's also this guy called Darsha, who's also after the flower maiden. It's a very good series. I would describe Wolf's Rain as an action-adventure, thriller sort of series, which follows the wolves as they search for paradise, but I won't spoil anything, but don't really expect a happy ending from this one if you do watch it. Wolf's Rain I have nostalgia for it because it's one of the first shows I watched, and I also really loved it with the wolves and the storyline and everything. It's great. Wolf's Rain is fantastic. Anyway, moving on to my number 8 on the list. We have Laughing Under the Clouds, and this is like one of the hardest positions to fill because I had 3 anime which are like tied for this position, and it took me a while to decide out of the 3 which one to choose, which was Skate the Infinity, ID Invaded, and this one, but in the end I decided to choose this one. And it was especially hard because none of those 3 series are anything alike. They are all completely different, but I could have chose any of those 3, but I decided to go for Laughing Under the Clouds because it's a show I watched very recently and I really liked it. So yeah, out of the 3 I think this one was slightly above the other 2. So that's what I decided to choose. So Laughing Under the Clouds is a historical shoujo like action series with some mystery as well. We follow the 3 Kuma brothers as there's a lake in Kyoto called Lake Biwa, and in this series takes place as the samurais are starting to be like go out of fashion and they start to like get rid of them, and there's this Lake Biwa holds this giant prison on an island in the middle of it, and all the people who are breaking the law and disagree with samurais being like made redundant are being sent to this prison, and it's these brothers' job to ferry people across to the island into this prison. But they're like the ferrymen. He also help to catch the criminals too. We have Tenka, the oldest brother, who you see here with Sarasu, who is their servant, and he's a ninja. And then we have Soromaru and Jitaro, who are the younger brothers. But this family also holds a secret about a supernatural being that the 2 younger ones know nothing about, and Tenka's kind of keeping a secret from them, and they are trying to find out what that is. And I did really enjoy this series a lot. It was good. I also enjoyed the manga, but this series is complete. A bit like Wolf's Rain, which is an anime original. This one is based off a manga, but the manga does cover the complete story. The anime covers the complete story from the manga, and then there is 3 films which cover the sequel manga, Gaiden as well. Yeah, I really enjoyed Laughing Under the Clouds. I thought it was a very good series. Anyway, next up at number 7 on the list, I've got Ascendant of a Bookworm, which is like my favourite isekai. Isekai isn't my favourite genre. I don't tend to read or watch a lot of them. I do watch some. But out of all the isekais that I've ever come across, this one is my favourite. I've read part 1 of the light novels. This is also incomplete. This is the second one on the list that is incomplete. So it's based on light novels, and season 3 is not that long been out. I have yet to watch season 3. It's one of the next things I'm going to watch because I really loved season 1 and I really loved season 2. Right, Ascendant of a Bookworm is about a girl who dies after being crushed by a bunch of books, and she's reincarnated into the body of a sickly 4-year-old girl called Mine, this girl here, in this world where books are extremely expensive and only the most richer people can read them. And Mine decides that if she can't buy books of her own and read books, she's going to make them. So this is kind of Mine's journey, especially part 1, of trying to make books, like using different methods, and you learn about past methods of making books and stuff. And she lives with obviously her mother, her father, and her big sister Tuti, and then her best friend Rutz, who she like recruits to help her make books. And I do also like the cast of characters in this one as well. Yeah, this is definitely one of the better isekai that I've come across. But this is more of a slice of life series that's like low on the fantasy. At least season 1 is low on the fantasy. There's a bit more fantasy elements come into it at the end of season 2, but it's not really action adventure sort of isekai. It's more of a slice of life, like slow burn isekai about making books in this other world, and it is very interesting, and I do really like it. And you do get to see mine grow up a little bit. I think she's 7 now. I think she's 7 as of season 3. I'm not 100% sure though. Anyway, I really did enjoy Ascendance of a Bookworm. It is a very good series. Next up at number 6. Is this number 6? Or is that number 6? No, yeah, this is number 6. At number 6 I have From the New World. And From the New World is an anime I watched quite a few years back, but I still think about this anime to this day. It was very good. From the New World is a series that follows 5 kids in a post-apocalyptic world where they're just starting to build society over again. So we're in the future, but it looks very much like it would in the past, and then this society has strict rules that must be followed at all times. And then we have these 5 kids who are just starting to develop psychic powers, because at the age of 12 is when kids start to develop their psychic powers, because everyone in this world has these psychic powers. So they're starting to get their psychic powers, and the start of the show is there's like 3 different stages of the show. The first one being when they're 12, it jumps to when they're 14, and then it jumps into when they're 26. So yeah, we have the 5 kids, and they're going on this journey. They're like their first field trip outside of their village to like look at the outside world. But whilst they're there, they discover this like thing who gives them some information on the past, which makes them question their society and the rules and whether it's actually right or not. And then they notice that kids are starting to also disappear, and they hear words floating around such as ogre and karmic demon, and they're like wondering what this all means and where these kids are going, and why once they've disappeared no one can remember them in the first place. And it's a horror mystery, like sci-fi-ish series, and it's very good. I do highly recommend this one. It does get you thinking. There is a lot of info dumps throughout the series, especially like the 2 big ones. But yeah, you do follow these kids as they start to grow up in the society and question whether it's worth following its rules and being accepted, or whether it's worth going against them but like being an outsider. And it's also these monster rats, which are they're like naked mole rat people who have like a society out in this world as well. So this is a very good one, which I would highly recommend to check out. It is a bit more complicated though. Next up, we're going into my top 5, and these were the ones that were super easy for me to choose. So at number 5 I have an old shoujo series called It Is All in a Kiss, or It a Kiss for short. And I know this is a controversial one, but call it a guilty pleasure if you will, but I really like this one. I know the guy's a douche, but I still really love this series. It's another one I watched years ago, but this is a shoujo romance series. The manga was from, I think, the 80s, 70s, 80s, something like that, but I'd never read the manga. The manga sadly never got an ending due to the death of the author, but the anime was finished using her notes as the way she would have wanted the series to end, so the anime does have an ending. It Is All in a Kiss is a romance series that follows Kyoko and Naoki, and her and her father have recently lost their home, and Naoki's family agrees to let them live in his house, but this is after Kyoko has confessed to Naoki that she likes him, and he has brutally turned her down and called her an idiot, and saying you're so stupid, you're not on my level. And now she's being forced to live with him, but she still has feelings for him, but he's completely not interested in her because he's super smart, and he doesn't see her as being someone on his level. But eventually the two do go closer, and one thing I do really love about the series is that it follows these characters throughout several stages of their lives. It's not just focused on them in high school. We have their high school years, and we have their college years, we have the marriage, we have them getting jobs, we have them having kids, and you get to see all of that rather than just it end after high school, and that's one thing I did really love about this series. Yeah, that is On a Kiss. I'd say it's an older one, it's a bit more of a controversial one, but I really love it. Anyway, moving on to number 4, which is Blood Plus. Now this one is not as very well known as some of the others on this list. Blood Plus is it's a supernatural action adventure like vampire series. But Blood Plus, originally there was this film called Blood the Last Vampire, and then Blood Plus is like a TV series based off of that, and you may have heard of a series called Blood Sea, which is also based off of Blood the Last Vampire, but Blood Plus is the superior series. Blood Plus is definitely the one you should be watching. It follows Saya, who is a girl who has just woken up, and she's been adopted into this house where we have her and her 2 adopted brothers living there, and she has no memories of her past. But then this guy Haji starts showing up, and he's like knows her, and he was trying to awaken her memories, but her family's not really interested in awakening her memories because they know what will happen. But anyway, Haji, then she's at school one day when this giant monster called a Chiropteran shows up and attacking them, and then Haji gives Saya this sword and tells her that her blood is the one weapon that can kill these Chiropteran. So she takes the sword and she kills this Chiropteran, and then something tragic happens. Anyway, then these people from the government come along and tell her that she is a weapon used to kill this Chiropteran, that they need her back and that they need her fighting them. She still hasn't regained her memory, she still doesn't know why she lost them in the first place, she still doesn't know what she herself is. And yeah, it's a very good series. This is another one that I would highly recommend. Especially if you've seen Blood Sea, because this one is a lot better, the story's better, the characters are better developed in it. So yeah, highly recommend Blood Plus. Again, I watched this absolute years ago and it's still one of my favourites. Next up, top 3. These are the 3 that I have the most obsession with. Anyway, at number 3 we have Given. And Given is a music BL drama series about a band of 4 guys. We have Mafuyu, Umiyama, Haruki, and Akihiko. And Umiyama, one day at school, sees Mafuyu sleeping on the stairs with a red Gibson guitar. And he notices that the strings are broken, and Mafuyu asks if he can fix them. And he says he can. So he fixes the strings for him. And Mafuyu asks him if he could teach him to pray, but Umiyama's not interested in teaching him how to pray until he hears him sing, and then he hears him sing and he's like, you have to join the band. But Mafuyu has a tragic incident that happened in his past that is holding him back from music, and he's not sure whether he can actually join the band or not. Anyway, Given is really good. I am absolutely obsessed with Given. And I would actually rate the anime higher than the manga because you can actually hear the songs, whereas in the manga you obviously can't. There is a 13 episode TV series, no 11. There was an 11 episode TV series which was recently dubbed, brilliant dub by the way, highly recommend it. And then there's a film, and then there's an OVA, and I'm hoping for more. The manga is still ongoing. So yeah, Given is excellent. It's something I would very highly recommend anyone watch, especially if you're into like drama, like hard-hitting drama series. Give this one a go. I am literally obsessed with this series. Next up at number 2, oops, I forgot that there was another picture. Next up at number 2, I have Fruits Basket 2019. Now, I watched Fruits Basket, the original series, a long time ago, and I thought it was good. I really enjoyed it. Manga wasn't in print at the time, so when Impress did their new printings of it, I read it and I realised how much this original series actually left out, and I super loved the manga. And then when this was announced, and they announced that they're doing the entire story, they're doing Fruits Basket justice, I was just so happy to watch this, and it's brilliant. There is a couple of things that are left out, especially in season 3, mainly to do with Kakuru's girlfriend and her connection to Toru, but most of this important stuff was kept in, and it was brilliant. Fruits Basket is a shoujo, romance, supernatural drama series about Toru, an orphan girl who's recently lost her mother, who's living in a tent on the Soma family property, but she doesn't realise this property belongs to the Soma family. And they find her in this tent, and there's an avalanche, and they invite her to live with them, so she ends up living with the 3 cousins, Shigure, Yuki, and Kyo. But then she finds out that when these guys in the Soma family are hugged by someone of the opposite sex, they turn into their respective zodiac animal, as you can see here. Dog for Shigure and rat for Yuki, and then Kyo's the cat, who isn't actually in the zodiac. Though he's considered like an outsider and a monster among the rest of the Somas. And Fruits Basket is great. Fruits Basket is the most awesome thing that was ever created on this planet. You can't get much better than Fruits Basket. It is my total most obsession at the minute. I have it everywhere. And I love Fruits Basket so much. And my number 1 pick, which was my obsession for from ages 13 to 16, and I still have a lot of nostalgia for it, and that is Inuyasha. I absolutely loved the series when I first watched it. I was obsessed with it to the point where I even made a lot of character guides. I wrote down all of the character information off of Wikipedia into a book and made a character guide, and then I wrote down the name of every single episode, and then I wrote down the name of every single manga chapter. I was literally obsessed with this series. It's a shonen fantasy, isekai, supernatural, demons series about Inuyasha, who's a half-demon, and he was stuck to a tree from 500 years ago, and Kagome, a modern Japanese schoolgirl who falls down her well, and she finds out she's the reincarnation of this priestess called Kikyo, and she has this thing called the Shikon Jewel in her body, and Inuyasha wants to use this jewel to become a full demon, but in a battle between another demon that steals the jewel, Kagome ends up shattering it with a sacred arrow. Pieces go everywhere, and now it's up to her and Inuyasha to work together to find the pieces of the Shikon Jewel, along with other cast members like Moroku, Songo, and Shippo, who they find along the way. And then you have Inuyasha's older anti-hero brother, Shomaru, and then there's Rin. And I love most of the characters in this series. This series is great, and as I say, it was one of my first obsessions after Digimon. And I love this series so much. And obviously, this is a complete series. If you count the final act, there is a hell of a lot of episodes, and then I think there's 165. And then there's the final act, and then there's 4 movies as well. This is this and Fruits Basket and Given. Given, Fruits Basket, Inuyasha are the only 3 series I've ever given a 10 out of 10. I love them that much. So yeah, that is it for my top 10 favourite anime series. Let's get back to this top. I hope you enjoyed the video, and yep, I'll be back with a haul, obviously near the end of the month, so you can be looking forward to that if you want. And that's it for now, and goodbye.